What if the reason people don't respect you has nothing to do with them? What if the real problem is that you don't fully respect yourself? Let me ask you something that might sting a little. When you walk into a room, do you shrink or do you expand? Do you wait to be accepted or do you decide you belong? Because here's the uncomfortable truth the world mirrors back the story you silently tell about yourself. If you whisper, "I'm not enough," the world echoes it. If you stand in certainty, the world adjusts. People think respect is earned by status, money, loudness, dominance. It's not. Respect starts long before you speak. It starts in the private moments when no one is watching. The promises you keep, the boundaries you enforce, the standards you refuse to lower. Confidence is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is when your words, actions, and values match so closely that no one can shake you. I've seen incredibly talented people get ignored, and I've seen average, skilled people command rooms. The difference wasn't intelligence. It wasn't background. It was self-belief expressed through behavior. One person was asking silently, "Do you like me?" The other was declaring, "This is who I am." When you seek validation, you surrender power. When you seek alignment, you gain respect. Think about the last time someone dismissed your opinion. Did you immediately retreat? Did you over-explain? Did you laugh it off to avoid tension? Those micro moments matter. Every time you abandon your position to stay comfortable, you teach people how to treat you, and they learn fast. Confidence is built through evidence, not affirmations. Evidence when you say you'll wake up early and you do it. When you say you'll finish the project and you complete it. When you say no and you mean it. Every kept promise is a vote for your identity. Every broken promise is a crack in your foundation. You don't fix respect by demanding it. You fix it by becoming so internally solid that disrespect feels out of place. So if people don't respect you, don't start by blaming them. Start by asking a harder question: where are you tolerating less than you deserve? Because the moment you raise your standards for yourself, the world has no choice but to rise with you. Let me tell you a story. Early in my career, I met a young professional who was brilliant, smart, hardworking, creative. But every meeting he attended, he sat slightly back in his chair. He spoke softly. When someone interrupted him, he stopped talking. When someone challenged him, he immediately said, "Yeah, maybe you're right." Over time, something predictable happened. People stopped asking for his opinion, not because he wasn't capable, because he signaled uncertainty. Here's what we forget: people don't just listen to our words. They read our posture. They study our tone. They observe how we react under pressure. And in those subtle cues, they decide how much weight to give us. Respect is not granted based on potential. It's granted based on perceived conviction. Now contrast that with someone else I worked with, less experienced, fewer credentials. But when she spoke, she paused. She made eye contact. If interrupted, she calmly said, "Let me finish." If challenged, she didn't collapse. She clarified. She stood her ground without aggression. And guess what? The room leaned in. Same environment, different internal story. Confidence is not about being the loudest, it's about being the most certain. And certainty doesn't come from ego, it comes from clarity. Clarity about what you believe, clarity about what you value, clarity about what you will and will not tolerate. When you lack clarity, you seek approval. When you have clarity, you offer contribution. Most people who feel disrespected are living in a constant state of external scanning. They're watching faces for approval, listening for validation, adjusting themselves to fit the mood of the room. That constant adjustment erodes presence. And without presence, there is no authority. Think about this carefully. Have you ever agreed with something you didn't believe just to avoid tension? Have you laughed at a joke that made you uncomfortable? Have you said yes when your whole body wanted to say no? Every time you betray your internal compass, your confidence weakens. And people sense it. Respect is deeply connected to self-trust. If you don't trust your own decisions, why should anyone else? The turning point for that young professional wasn't a new degree or a promotion. It was a decision. He started preparing thoroughly before meetings. He wrote down his key points. And when he spoke, he committed to finishing his thought. The first few times felt uncomfortable. His voice shook. But he didn't retreat. And slowly, the room changed. Because when you change your behavior consistently, you change your identity. And when your identity shifts, so does the way the world responds to you. There's something even deeper happening beneath the surface. Most people think confidence is a personality trait. It's not. It's a pattern of small, repeated acts of courage. And courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you act in alignment despite the fear. The real reason people struggle with respect is not skill, it's inconsistency. One day you're strong. The next day you're apologizing for your own opinion. One moment you set a boundary. The next moment you break it because you don't want to disappoint someone. That unpredictability confuses people. And when people are confused about you, they don't trust you. Without trust, respect collapses. Let's talk about boundaries. When someone cancels on you last minute and you say, "No worries," even though it bothered you, what message are you sending? When someone speaks over you and you go silent, what are you teaching them? When someone makes a subtle joke at your expense and you smile to keep things smooth, what standard are you reinforcing? You are training people how to treat you, not through big speeches, through small reactions. Confident people are not aggressive. They are clear, they don't explode, they don't overreact. They simply respond in a way that reflects their self-worth. If something doesn't work for them, they say it calmly. If they disagree, They express it directly. If they need time, they take it. No drama, just clarity. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Many people who feel disrespected are addicted to being liked. And being liked is a fragile currency. The moment you challenge someone, you risk losing it. So you stay agreeable, you stay flexible, you stay accommodating, and slowly you become invisible. Respect requires friction, not conflict. Friction. It requires moments where you choose truth over comfort, where you choose standards over approval, where you allow someone to be temporarily disappointed instead of permanently undervaluing you. Ask yourself this: do you want to be comfortable or do you want to be respected? Because you cannot always have both. The shift begins internally. You stop asking, will they like this? And start asking, is this aligned with who I want to be? That question changes everything. It pulls you out of reaction mode and into ownership. Confidence grows when your behavior matches your values consistently over time. Not once, not twice, over and over again. And the moment people realize you are steady, that you won't bend under minor pressure, that your words mean something, they start to listen differently. Because stability commands respect. Let's go deeper. There is a silent agreement happening in every interaction you have, an invisible contract. It says, this is how I expect to be treated. The problem is, most people never consciously write that contract. They let other people draft it for them. And if you don't define your standards, someone else will. Think about the most respected person you know. It might be a leader, a mentor, a colleague. What makes them different? It's not just their success, it's their consistency. They don't laugh at things that violate their values. They don't compromise on what matters just to keep the peace. They are predictable in the best way. You know where they stand. Predictability builds safety. Safety builds trust. Trust builds respect. Now ask yourself honestly, are you predictable? Or are you emotionally negotiable? If your mood, tone, and boundaries shift depending on who you're with, people don't know which version of you they're getting. And when people are uncertain about you, they subconsciously lower the weight of your presence. Confidence is stability under pressure. It's not about being perfect. It's about being anchored. Let me explain it differently. Imagine a ship in the middle of the ocean. The waves represent criticism, disagreement, rejection. If the ship has no anchor, every wave pushes it off course. That's what happens when you depend on external validation. One comment ruins your day. One disagreement makes you question yourself. One failure defines your identity. But when you have an anchor, clear values, strong self-trust, the waves still come. They just don't move you as easily. And here's where it becomes advanced. You don't build that anchor in public. You build it in private. In the early mornings when you do what you said you would do. In the difficult conversations you choose not to avoid. In the moments when you hold your posture even if your voice trembles. Confidence is rehearsed in solitude and revealed in public. Many people chase respect through image. Better clothes, better titles, louder voices. But image without integrity collapses under pressure. People can sense when someone is performing. And performance is exhausting. You can't sustain it. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't demand approval. It simply exists. So the question becomes, are you trying to impress people or are you trying to become someone you respect? Because when you respect yourself deeply, when your habits, boundaries, and standards align, you no longer chase validation. And something powerful happens. People stop testing you, not because you threaten them, but because your stability makes it clear where the line is. Let's talk about something most people avoid, your inner dialogue. Because before anyone disrespects you externally, you've usually been disrespecting yourself internally for years. Listen carefully to the way you speak to yourself after a mistake. I'm so stupid. I always mess things up. Why can't I be better? You would never say those words to someone you care about, yet you repeat them in your own mind. And here's the danger. The brain doesn't know the difference between a joke and a belief. It records repetition as truth. And whatever you believe about yourself, you communicate without speaking. Micro-expressions. Tone shifts, hesitation, over-apologizing, over-explaining. They all come from one root: doubt. If you doubt your value, you will overcompensate. You'll say sorry when it's not necessary. You'll justify your decisions before anyone even questions them. You'll soften your statements with, this might be a bad idea, but... And in doing so, you shrink your authority before it has a chance to stand. Confident people don't eliminate self-criticism. They manage it. They replace destructive judgment with constructive evaluation. Instead of, I'm terrible at this, they say, I need to improve this skill. That shift is subtle, but powerful. One attacks identity. The other targets growth. Respect grows when your identity feels solid. Let me share something important. When you constantly seek reassurance, you're outsourcing your worth. You're asking others to stabilize something that should be internally anchored. And people feel that weight. It creates imbalance in relationships. Over time, they may not consciously know why, but they feel less inclined to follow, trust, or rely on you. Confidence is emotional responsibility. It's the ability to regulate your reactions, to pause before responding, to choose your words deliberately instead of defensively. When someone criticizes you, do you crumble? Or do you listen, filter, and respond calmly? That response determines how people categorize you in their minds. There's a powerful shift that happens when you stop trying to protect your ego and start protecting your standards. Ego reacts. Standards respond. Ego needs to win. Standards need to align. If someone disagrees with you and your first instinct is to defend, you're protecting ego. But if your first instinct is to evaluate, is there truth here? You're protecting growth. That level of maturity commands respect automatically. So the work is internal before it's external. Clean up your self-talk. Strengthen your emotional control. Stop apologizing for existing. Speak clearly. Move intentionally. Because the way you treat yourself sets the template, and the world simply follows your lead. Now let's confront a hard truth. Sometimes people don't respect you because you don't require them to. Not with force. Not with anger, but with standards. There's a difference between being kind and being compliant. Kindness is strength under control. Compliance is fear disguised as politeness. And many people confuse the two. They think that if they're always agreeable, always available, always accommodating, they'll earn appreciation. But what they often earn instead is convenience. And people don't respect what's always convenient. Think about this carefully. When you answer messages instantly every single time, when you rearrange your schedule at the last minute, when you tolerate subtle disrespect just to avoid tension, you may believe you're being easy to work with. But what you're actually communicating is this: my time is flexible. My boundaries are negotiable. And negotiable boundaries invite testing. Confident individuals understand the power of pause. They don't react immediately out of fear of losing approval. They take a breath. They assess, they decide. That pause alone shifts the dynamic. It signals that your response is a choice, not a reflex. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone interrupts you mid-sentence. The old pattern might be to stop speaking and let them continue. But what if instead you calmly said, I'd like to finish my point. No anger, no sarcasm, just clarity. That small correction changes everything. It reestablishes the frame of the interaction. And here's what's fascinating. Most people will adjust instantly, not because you intimidated them, but because you demonstrated self-respect. Self-respect is communicated through behavior, not declarations. You don't need to announce your standards. You enforce them quietly through consistency. If someone repeatedly cancels on you, you stop over-accommodating. If someone speaks to you dismissively, you address it once calmly and move forward accordingly. Confidence is calm enforcement. It's not emotional. It's not dramatic. It's steady. Now here's the advanced layer. When you begin enforcing boundaries, some people will resist. They may call you different. They may say you've changed. And they're right. You have changed. You've moved from seeking comfort to seeking alignment. That resistance is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign the dynamic is shifting. You must be willing to lose shallow approval to gain deep respect. And that's where most people hesitate. They fear being disliked more than they value being respected. But the paradox is this: the more you respect yourself, the more the right people are drawn to you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're stable. And stability is rare. When your yes means yes, and your no means no, people adjust their behavior around you naturally. Because clarity eliminates confusion. And where there is no confusion, respect grows. There's another level most people never reach. They learn to set boundaries. They learn to speak clearly. But they still feel disrespected. Why? Because confidence is not only about how you respond to others. It's about how you carry yourself before anything happens. Walk into any room and observe carefully. Some people enter quietly, yet the energy shifts. Others enter loudly, and nothing changes. The difference is not volume, it's presence. Presence comes from internal certainty. When you are constantly thinking, how am I being perceived? Do I look confident? Do I sound smart? Your attention is fragmented. You are split between the moment and the mirror in your mind. That split weakens you. People sense when someone is self-monitoring excessively. It creates tension. But when you are focused outward on contribution instead of impression, your presence strengthens. You're not trying to protect your image. You're trying to add value, and that shift is powerful. Let me explain it this way. If your goal in a conversation is to be liked, you will filter your words. You'll soften your ideas. You'll avoid disagreement. But if your goal is to move the conversation forward, you will speak with clarity. You'll ask hard questions. You'll hold eye contact, not to dominate, but to engage. Confident people are not self-obsessed. They are mission-focused. That's why they appear calm. Their energy is not scattered by insecurity. They know why they're there. They know what they stand for. And that sense of direction stabilizes everything about them. Their posture, their tone, their pace. Now here's something advanced. Your body influences your mind as much as your mind influences your body. If you constantly shrink your posture, avoid eye contact, rush your words, your nervous system interprets that as threat. You become reactive. But when you slow your breathing, stand upright, and speak at a measured pace, your brain registers safety. That internal calm projects outward. And people respond to calm. Have you ever noticed that the most respected person in a tense situation is usually the one who speaks last? They listen. They observe. And when they finally speak, it's deliberate. That deliberateness signals control. Control over emotion, control over impulse, control over self. And control over self is the foundation of confidence. So stop trying to look confident. Start practicing composure. Slow down your movements. Finish your sentences. Allow silence without rushing to fill it. Silence, when held calmly, communicates strength. It shows you're not desperate for validation. Remember this. Confidence is not about occupying space loudly. It's about occupying space fully. When you are fully present, unapologetic, steady, intentional, people feel it. And when people feel it, they respond differently. Because presence, grounded in certainty, naturally commands respect. Now let's move into something even more uncomfortable. Your environment might be reinforcing your lack of confidence. If you constantly surround yourself with people who interrupt you, dismiss your ideas, mock your ambitions, or subtly compete with you, over time your nervous system adapts. You begin to anticipate dismissal. You start preparing defenses before attacks even happen. And that anticipation changes how you show up. You become cautious. You measure every word. You second-guess bold ideas before they leave your mouth. And slowly, your identity shrinks to fit the room. Here's the truth most people avoid. Not every room deserves you at your full strength. Confidence grows in environments that challenge you, but do not belittle you. There's a difference. Challenge pushes you to improve. Belittlement pushes you to doubt. One builds capability, the other erodes identity. Ask yourself this honestly. Do the people around you celebrate your growth? Or do they subtly remind you to stay realistic? Do they engage your ideas with curiosity? Or do they respond with sarcasm? Energy is contagious. If you are the most self-doubting person in a confident room, you will likely grow. But if you are the most ambitious person in a room that fears growth, you will feel resistance. And that resistance can slowly chip away at your confidence if you're not careful. This doesn't mean you cut everyone off dramatically. It means you become intentional. You limit exposure to environments that drain you. You increase exposure to environments that expand you. Confidence is easier to build when it is reinforced. Let me tell you something powerful. When you begin to raise your standards internally and externally, some relationships will shift. Some conversations will feel different. Some people may pull away. That is not a loss. That is alignment happening in real time. You cannot evolve and remain identical to your past environment. Growth creates contrast, and contrast makes people uncomfortable. But here's the advanced mindset. You don't blame the environment. You don't become bitter. You simply choose better. You move towards spaces where your voice is valued, where your ideas are sharpened instead of silenced. And when you consistently place yourself in rooms that require your best, something remarkable happens. Your confidence becomes less fragile, because it's no longer dependent on surviving negativity. It's supported by constructive friction. Remember, respect is not only something you demand from individuals. It's something you demand from your surroundings. You teach the world how to treat you not just by what you say, but by where you choose to stand. Choose rooms that stretch you. Choose conversations that sharpen you. Choose people who challenge your excuses but respect your ambition. Because the right environment doesn't just reflect your confidence, it multiplies it. Here's where most people completely miss the point. Respect doesn't come from what you say. It comes from how you act when no one is watching. Every micro decision you make builds or erodes the foundation of your authority. Did you finish what you promised yourself yesterday? Did you respond with integrity when no one was looking? Did you hold your composure when you felt like exploding? Those unseen moments are the true tests of confidence. They create the internal proof that you are reliable, grounded, and consistent, and people unconsciously feel it. Think about someone you respect deeply. Chances are they have habits you don't even notice. They keep their word. They show up on time. They follow through even when it's inconvenient. And you admire them not because they asked for it, but because they consistently demonstrate it. Now contrast that with someone who talks big but acts inconsistently. They promise things they don't deliver. They bend their standards to appease others. They speak with authority in public but falter in private. You feel it immediately, even if you can't explain why. That lack of alignment kills respect faster than any mistake ever could. Confidence isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in small, relentless acts of alignment. Waking up early when your alarm rings, even when you don't feel like it. Saying no to something that doesn't align with your goals. Speaking your truth calmly when it's easier to stay silent. These are the building blocks of authority. Here's the hard truth. When you consistently fail to honor yourself, the world notices. And they respond accordingly. People mirror the level of self-respect you model. If you tolerate chaos in your own life, others will feel entitled to treat you with chaos. If you demand integrity of yourself, others will respond with integrity. So what does this mean for you? Stop waiting for permission to respect yourself. Stop hoping the world will recognize your worth before you act like it matters. Begin with the internal proof, every promise kept, every value defended, every standard enforced. When you operate from that foundation, something remarkable happens. You no longer need to demand respect. People naturally adjust. They lean in. They listen. They honor the consistency you embody. Remember, confidence is cumulative. It grows in moments no one applauds. It shows up quietly in your presence, your behavior, and your choices. And once it is strong enough, respect follows naturally. Not because you forced it, but because you became undeniable. Consistency is the invisible signal everyone watches, even if they never say it. And that invisible signal changes everything. Here's the final piece. And this is where transformation happens. Imagine standing in a room where everyone doubts you, underestimates you, and tests your limits. Now imagine responding not with anger, not with defensiveness, but with calm certainty. You pause before speaking. You choose your words deliberately. You maintain your posture, your tone steady, your eyes clear. In that moment, you are untouchable. Not because the room changed, but because you changed. This is the essence of confidence. The ability to anchor yourself so fully that external chaos cannot shake you. People can push, provoke, or challenge, but your internal alignment creates a force field around your presence. And here's the key. This force is magnetic. People are drawn to it. They follow it. They unconsciously adjust their behavior to match your level of certainty. Respect, you see, is not negotiated. It's observed. It grows when your actions, words, and presence speak louder than any demand. You don't ask for it, you embody it. And when you embody it consistently, it becomes irresistible. Now consider the internal journey you've been on over the last sections. Noticing how self-talk shapes your identity, setting boundaries that reflect your values, building presence that communicates calm authority, choosing environments that reinforce growth, and honoring promises to yourself. Each step compounded into one undeniable truth: respect begins with you. Not the world, not your peers, you. Here's the paradox: the stronger your confidence, the less you care about immediate approval. And ironically, that detachment increases the respect others give you. People sense when someone is anchored in their own integrity. They sense when someone's decisions are not reactionary but intentional. That sense is magnetic. That sense commands attention. That sense demands respect. So here's the challenge: take ownership of your internal world. Stop outsourcing your worth to external validation. Stop shrinking to fit others' expectations. Start keeping your promises, defending your standards, and aligning your actions with your values. Practice it relentlessly, in private first, in public next. When you consistently live with that alignment, respect becomes automatic. Not because you forced it, not because you demanded it, but because your presence has become undeniable, your confidence contagious, and your identity unshakable. Remember this: people don't respect you for what you claim. They respect you for what you embody. And when you embody unwavering self-respect, the world has no choice but to rise to meet it. This is the ultimate truth. The journey to respect always starts inside. Confidence isn't optional. It's non-negotiable. And once it is fully realized, everything changes. Respect yourself first, then watch the world follow.